That's how subtle these things are, in my mind, and how complex they are, and how you can open them with the key of the scrolls in the early history of the church. But you have to know these things. You have to know the early history of the church. You see, if you think Kurt Waldheim is the greatest living man of the 20th century, you know, I really couldn't trust your view of the first century. I wouldn't think your historical view was going to be very substantiatable. That's the problem with philologists, people who only work on manuscripts, people who do philology, language. They may not be very good historians or literary critics. That's our big problem, Dead Sea Scroll study. That's why we can do something at Cal State Long Beach with all of its lack of so-called prestige that is equal to or superior to what can be done at Harvard and Oxford or Notre Dame. Because those people may not be very good historians. They may be very good text people. They may be able to separate piles of paleographic materials into different manuscripts, etc. Or they may be able to reconstruct a manuscript. Maybe you should read that chap's history. When he finally did reconstruct MFD, you should read what he makes of it in the Oxford publication series. I don't want to say what he made of it, but I say I made of it as a letter of James to a Jamesian letter to the great king of the peoples beyond the Euphrates. Now you've got to even know that there was a great king of the peoples beyond the Euphrates before you can even know that. And it's Eusebius who tells us about, through the chancellery offices, about the conversion of the great king of the peoples beyond the Euphrates, also at the hands of one Ananias. They're all very complicated, but I think Izates and the great king of the peoples beyond the Euphrates are one and the same person, just from different perspectives. It's very complicated. It's all in my James book. It's why it's 1,000 pages and I can't, do it on one foot now. But that's won't tell you how important the Damascus document is. So we just want to see the parallels. And what happened was the Cairo Geniza is a place, Geniza in Hebrew means where you deposit or secret away either dead or used documents. No? In Jewish law, you don't secret away things that have the name of God on them. So someone said that you wanted me to pass around a roll sheet, so I got to find one here. So fouled up here. Here's one. Okay. You want to put a date on that and pass it around? So in Hebrew manuscripts, if they have the name of God on something, you can't destroy it. You can only bury it like a human or secret away. That's what Geniza was. This is an old synagogue in Cairo, where some Qumran documents were found in the late 1800s, 1896 to be exact. In this Geniza, there were materials from the whole Mediterranean world. Jewish trading documents, marriage contracts, correspondence, prayer books. It was in a sealed synagogue in Cairo that the British came upon when they took over the administration of Cairo. And a Jewish scholar from Cambridge, a fellow called Solomon Schechter, went out and edited this material, took it all back to Cambridge. And he is really the founder of conservative Judaism in America, because after he made a name for himself in these ways, he came to America. Well, in the process, some scroll materials were found. One thing, the Hebrew copy of Ecclesiasticus was found. That had never been seen before, only Greek, Ethiopic, other versions of Ecclesiasticus. Later, a similar document was found on Masada, where the Sicari's committed suicide. Also, this Damascus fragment. Two different manuscripts. We call manuscript A and manuscript B. In my translation, Dead Sea Scrolls and the First Christians, I have that document in both the versions. Manuscript B doesn't have all the columns, it just has 2 columns. But it differs from manuscript A. It overlaps and it differs, which shows that the document was still developing when the versions that finally arrived in the Cairo Geniza were done. That's why we wanted to see the parallels. you can see how important that would be to see what was parallel at Qumran. I think both versions were parallel. I have to check that, but I think they were. Finally, when they were finally published everything. Now, it's so funny, you know, I don't want to be over, you know, bearing about this or egocentric or whatever. But I think I'll take credit for calling it the Damascus document. Because if you look in all the old books, this document is called the Zadokite document, or the Zadokite fragments, or then people like Vermesh, in their original version of their work, are calling it the Damascus Rule. I think I have it here. No, I don't think not that one. They're calling it the Damascus Rule. Here, I have it here. Because they were calling everything rule. They had, this is one of his early works, they had the war rule, the Messianic rule, the community rule, and the Damascus rule. Well, I never thought it was a Damascus rule or anything like that. And you look at my Maccabees Zadokites, I started calling it, combining the two, the Damascus document. Now, if you pick up Vermesh's book now, even though he criticizes me in that weird way that he does, which is totally unwarranted, he says that I say Paul is the wicked priest, which shows he's never read any of my work. He said it in his original work. He says it in that book, too, in a footnote. And so, of course, if you have someone saying something ridiculous, you can make them look like a fool. But the point is, it shows that he's never read any of my work, because as I told you previously, I specifically distinguish between the wicked priest and the righteous teacher. I think I was the first to do that. That is that there are two enemies at Qumran. One is responsible for the destruction of the righteous teacher, who is the official high priest of the time, and the other is someone within the community, an opponent within the community called the liar. Now, official, that's what I think of as literary critical talents. Official Qumran theory up to that point had just assumed that the liar and the wicked priest were the same person. And I, in my work, identified that they were two different people. One was an ideological adversary within the movement. He was at the scriptural exegesis sessions of the righteous teacher, according to the Habakkuk commentary. He was within the movement. The other was an external adversary. So Mr. Vermesh, having accepted the official theory, thinks that I'm saying that the liar and the wicked priest are the same person. So therefore he can laugh and say, Eisenman says Paul is the wicked priest. When I'm only saying Paul is like